Hey Lou.
Hey Nay, how's it going?
Really good, thank you, my babe. And we are extra excited to be doing the podcast today because we have got an amazing special guest joining us. So we are being joined today by Marisa Guthrie, a business coach who helps small and micro businesses increase their profits by doing more of the work that they love.
Amazing. So Marisa is a serial entrepreneur of 26 years and a big believer in micro businesses and their not so micro power, which incidentally is what we'll be talking about in more detail today. So hi Marisa, and thank you so much for joining us today.
It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. This is definitely going to be the highlight of my week, so I'm super excited.
Yay!
Yeah, we're so excited. We have been lucky enough to meet you in person a few times through some amazing local women's networking hubs that we have. But for our listeners who might be listening or meeting you for the very first time, can you give us a little bit more background on you, your business and your journey?
Absolutely. So, I've been running businesses now for nearly 27 years, I think. And I started my first business when I was 25, so you can roughly work out how old I am. So in that time, I've set up 3 social enterprises. I was the managing director of a cross-party think tank. And I've also been an advisor to an APPG, an all-party parliamentary group on micro businesses. So I really have been embedded in the world of micro business for pretty much all of my career, and it's what gets me really excited and gets me out of bed in the morning. So I'm sure we'll get into the detail of that.
Amazing. So can you tell me a little bit more about what a micro business actually is?
Yes, really good question. There's a little bit of a misconception out there. So luckily, the European Union and the Office of National Statistics use roughly the same metric to measure a micro business, and that is typically 0 to 10 employees, the 0 being mostly one woman, one man band. So usually a business like mine where it's just me, that is typically your micro business. It's not to do with turnover, as people can sometimes be confused by that. You can have huge turnovers and still be a micro business. You can have really small turnovers and still be a micro business. So it's the one man, one woman, or up to 10 employees.
Mm-hmm. So Louise and I count then. We're still a micro business.
Definitely. And what's interesting is I used to run a business with my husband. We had 4 or 5 employees and we always called ourselves a small business. And then it wasn't until years later I was like, hang on, we were running a micro business, and no wonder we felt slightly like we didn't fit in the small business bracket. So again, that's maybe something that we'll get into detail of.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting because that's something that Louise and I do as well. So maybe we need to shift our wording a little bit away from that small business and into the mighty micro business sector.
Absolutely.
Mighty micro, love it.
Yeah. So it's clear that you're like a massive fan of micro businesses. You're clearly really passionate about it. What is it about micro businesses in particular that you find so exciting?
So it's really interesting because even before COVID, micro businesses for me, I really felt like they were massively underrepresented. And when I did some digging around, when I was doing the advising on the APPG, I discovered that most of the business activity in the UK actually comes from micro businesses. And I'm going back about 5 or 6 years. Since COVID, that has shifted even more. And they now reckon it's around 80% of business activity in the UK comes from micro businesses. But what I always felt was in my many iterations as a business owner over those years is that there was so much underrepresentation, and there was also a massive lack of funding and expertise for those businesses. So the sort of people I used to get in my office coming to see me would often be self-funding their businesses, which I'm sure a lot of people listening may be able to resonate with. And that's really problematic when it comes to leveling up in any way. So, for me, it's about really leveling the playing field and making sure that the micros and this ever-growing, body of business owners very much firmly take their place in the business world.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, it's so good to... I didn't realize there were so many, actually, to be honest. I'm quite shocked by that. That's Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be much support, I would say, as well. So, I mean, you've worked obviously with so many business owners. What would you say kind of are their biggest challenges that they often face?
Yeah, well, there's three really. And I would say the first one, and again, the listeners may be able to see themselves in this, but the first big challenge is around identity. Not seeing them. So the thing that I hear, the mantra I hear more often than not in my office is, I just don't feel like I'm very good at business. I don't feel very business-like. They don't identify as a business. So that what they'll say is, I'm self-employed, or, this whole conversation, and again, maybe we'll get into that, but this whole conversation about, I will try to get them to use entrepreneurial language. And that will often feel something that's really uncomfortable, because they're just saying, I'm self-employed or I'm freelance, which is slightly different. So again, that debate rages on, and that's going to be a conversation that's going to be going around for a long time. So really, the first one is around identity. The second is budget. Budgets are huge issues. Budgets are such big issues that when you're trying to do anything in your business, what you will find that business owner trying to do, obviously, if they don't have the budget, they've got to try and do it themselves. And I know that's where you guys have found a really fantastic solution. So you're exactly the sort of business that I would say you're entrepreneurial, because you found a unique solution to a problem that's out there, that's faced by many people. So I'm so grateful for you for doing that. So budget is one thing. And then because of that, it has the knock-on effect of the third challenge being time or a lack of. So those last two ones, budgets and time, they're really about infrastructure. There's no infrastructure in micro businesses, because even if you have if you're lucky enough to have up to 10 employees, let's say, maybe you are going to be in a slightly different position. You may be able to delegate certain things, but you're going to be very slow to react to things, because you're doing all the doing yourself as well as doing the delivery. You're trying to be an expert in all of those things all the time, and that's really exhausting. So what happens is, from those three challenges, really, there's a kind of a burnout. It can be actual burnout, or just a kind of psychological burnout of, I'm doing all these things, but I don't really identify with being a business owner. So that has loads of knock-on effects. So for me, those are the three challenges that I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think there are so many unique challenges and expectations put upon you when you are a freelancer, micro business owner, however you choose to identify in your business journey. And I think one of the places that these seem to come from the most, and I know that a lot of people get hung up with things like this, is like the Instagram coaching space, and we've talked a little bit about this in person. But what would you say to this idea that you need like super high, fast growth to be successful as a business owner, that's parroted by these kind of 10K a month coaches that you see so much online?
I mean, because you've met me both, you know that I've got a lot to say on this, so I shall be as succinct as possible. But there's so much that, every time I meet a business owner for the first time, it would be so remiss of me to be putting my expectations onto them. I don't know what your notion of success is, and therefore that is very much for you to define. So one of the sort of things that I bang on about a lot in my business and in sort of my own marketing is about, you own success on your terms. You define success on your terms, not be taking on this notion of in order to be a successful business owner, I must ... look a certain way, act a certain way, have a certain level of turnover. The six-figure coaches, there is a place for them. And if that works for you, that is great. But if your goal is not to get to six figures, then are you supposed to feel like a failure because of that? So for me, the first thing I will ask a business owner is, okay, tell me about your business. Second, what are your personal goals? What is it that you want your business to be facilitating? You're not here to make money. That's an outcome. What is it that you want that money to be facilitating? So, for example, I'm working with a business. so many businesses have various different financial goals. It's none of my business whatsoever what those may be. I'm interested in, are those financial goals going to get you closer to your personal goals? So I'm working with a business where success to them looks like 10K a year. That's a successful year for them. That's what they want. I'm working with another business where what they want to get to is 10 million. It's just none of my business whatsoever. So what's most important is, as the business owner, you need to know what your personal goals are so that you can understand whether your business is facilitating those personal goals or not. And some of the time, I mean, I've sat with a few business owners and I have to say, not so much the sort of millennial end of the spectrum, but more sort of my age group. We don't sit comfortably with goals very easily. You know, it has to be, not me, because I know what my goals are. I've got them locked down. I know what I'm doing this for. But with a lot of people, they're too scared to say, well, this, if I was really honest, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes time just to get that out. But that's the most important thing, for them to understand why they're doing this, as well as loving what they do. That isn't enough to keep you motivated all the time.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think it's so difficult, and especially when you are a micro business, because your business is your baby, isn't it? So I think you've got a lot of personality attached to that business. And I think, and then, there's definitely like this kind of achievement of, I need to be successful, and that means I need to be doing what other people are doing, you know, and forgetting that that's probably not really the reason why you started, you know, your own business in the first place. So it's just so easy to forget. I know that there's a lot of talk online about this kind of like 10K a month kind of achieving it. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Like on kind of creating that success, like that 10K a month? Like, do you get a lot of people kind of saying that that's their goal?
No. But what I said is people that say, oh, I feel discouraged when I see that, or that they've worked with those coaches, they've actually been able to create that financial success, but it's come at a massive cost, and they're now running a business they don't really want to be running anymore. Okay, so here's the thing about those, you know, getting to those 6, if that's what your goal is, but make sure that you're clear that that's what your goal is, first of all, because you know why you're doing it. So again, I'm not, you know, it's not my place to tell anyone what their goal should or shouldn't be. But the thing about often with those kind of models is they're based on a business being a certain size already, leveraging a massive audience so that when you do a launch, you get your 1% conversion and you're looking at, you know, thousands and thousands. Well, for a lot of us, that just isn't, you know, first of all, it's not how we want to do business. Second, it's not realistic. But the other thing about that is what I often see with rapid growth is, it can really derail a business, like big time. There is some, you know, something such as too much growth too quick means that you will possibly fold. But secondly, it's not replicable. You can't replicate it again. So what you'll often see is, you'll see people maybe hit that once, maybe twice, but then they can't keep delivering in order to hit that again. So it's not sustainable ultimately, but mostly people don't necessarily want to be running those sort of businesses. They're not that fun or fulfilling. They've just got the money coming in, and then something really, they just die inside. So what I would say is, if those are the sort of people that you're attracted to, and those are the sort of coaches you're going to work with, you're probably not our values are probably not aligned. It's much more fulfilling for me to work with someone. So I'm really happy to work with this business owner to get them to 10 million. But we're not doing it in a year, or we're not trying to do it in a month. You know, we're going to do it over time, and that makes sense to their business. But it's so important, I think, that whatever you do in your business, you're working with people whose values are aligned with you. It's exactly why I like hanging out with you guys, because our values are very similar. It feels good. It's like, you know, it's validating.
Totally agree. And I think Louise and I have got some personal experience with this as well, because the first sort of 6 to 8 months that we ran our business, we really focused on the money side of it because we didn't know what else to focus on. We were so new to business that the other kind of goals of freedom and all of these things are talked about so little that we didn't even know that we could go that direction. And we hit a 10K month in like our 5th month of business. And then it wiped us out so hard that we did not do anything on the business for 6 months.
Yeah.
So, and it's just so true that if you hit, So anyway, that's a personal story about how that really can negatively impact your business if it's not what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being so honest about that as well, because I do think there is a problem that we hide that. We don't want to talk about because we're so like, oh, I got to my 10K, isn't it exciting? Rather than going, I got to my 10K and I just couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
So it kind of wiped me out for 6 months. So thank you. Here, there's so much myth busting that we need to do around that. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree. I would love to know, we've talked a little bit there about money. I'd like to shift away from that for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say to micro business owners that are doubting the impact that they can make by, staying so small?
Oh my goodness. So again, how long have we got? Because without doing the whole down and dirty about capitalism, but it's
do it.
I recently watched this film, The Founder, which is about the McDonald's guy. And how he effectively stole that business model. And it's so interesting because what we're talking about here, we're talking about business as a force for good. We're not talking about capitalism. I think we can all agree, bar a few people that will never agree, that we're probably in the end days of capitalism because we've seen that trickle-down economics doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. What works is micro business owners being successful on their terms. And let me tell you that when people talk to me about their goals, nearly always one of their goals will be, I want more time and or money to devote to my community in some way. Okay. The other thing about micro business owners is they flipping pay their taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got corporates out there hiring teams of people that have lawyers that have left mainly lawyers, but economists who've left the Treasury, who know how tax evasion works, and they're doing their level best not to pay. I hope we don't get sued for being libelous here, but they're doing their level best not to pay taxes. And then
you're right, though. Yeah.
Whereas when I looked at the business that my husband and I ran, and the I remember one year our tax bill was bigger than Google's for that year.
Insane.
And you just think, and there was no way we couldn't have paid it because we didn't have, not that we would have wanted to not pay it, but when you've got a social contract like that that's been broken, it has a knock-on effect on everything. And I think we can see what's happening. Whereas micro business owners, they pay their taxes, they use their time and money to support causes, largely in their own communities, but perhaps even further afield as well. So the impact that you can have as a micro business owner, but the other thing about it as well is that I was recently talking to someone in the sustainability space, in terms of climate change and net zero and all of those things. You are able to be much more nimble and responsive as a micro business owner than have this huge entity where you're trying to turn the ship around to get them to do. If I decide that there are things that I can do in my business today to make a difference to net zero or whatever it may be, I can just do them. I don't have a board of, of directors that I have to okay with. I don't have shareholders that I need to worry about. So actually for me, what I would like to see, and indeed I think we are eventually moving towards that, not to say that there aren't some corporates out there doing really fantastic work. When I think of companies like Patagonia, I'm struggling to think of other ones. There are some big
there are,
and there are good people within them. It's a systemic issue. It's it comes from the capitalist model. It's not the individuals necessarily, although there are some very bad people out there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, if we could see a movement of the micro business owners really taking ownership of this and feeling empowered, my goodness, globally, that would have the most amazing impact. There's absolutely no question. So that's the quiet revolution, I think, that's taking place.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that's not talked about as much as well. Like as a business owner, I just think it can be so rewarding as well, especially as a micro business owner, to think I'm actually doing good. I mean, obviously, we all need money to kind of survive in this world. That's kind of how it is, but once you've got your bills covered, the feeling that you get from like that we get from kind of helping small business owners, from like seeing other people be able to achieve their goals and being able to help that, no amount of money really could kind of compete with it. So I wish it was talked about more, and that you could see success in like different ways, like including not just monetary, but how many you've helped and how you feel. And as you said, also how much time you have. I think there's definitely that movement to like free time and having more time, taking Fridays off, that's when you're truly kind of rich in your own time. I think it's really interesting. I mean, do you find then from working with like kind of micro businesses and larger businesses, are their goals quite different, I guess, then, not just financially, but in general as a business?
To be honest, not so much. I mean, some of the bigger entities I work with, they're like husband and wife teams. They've got, they do have employees. They've got that kind of thing. But actually, when I think of the businesses that want to work with me, because they know that I'm different, they know that I'm not your average business coach. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. My whole kind of, my jam is just totally different. And what I talk about, I am clearly anti-capitalist in what I do. That's not that common to find in the, business.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
And actually, it's still about what comes first. What nearly always comes first is something to do with family. They want to be able to spend more time with family. So it is that taking back time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it might be more of, some of those other things, like being able to use that money to just buy them that freedom to be able to then think about the things that are important to them. I wouldn't say that it massively changes, because the bigger a company that you're running, if you like, there is more to do. There are more plates spinning, even if you're getting other people to spin them for you. But the fundamentals around it, they're pretty much universal. So that's why I always say to people, look at, I don't want profit to be a dirty word. I love profit. I love making money. But that's because I'm clear about why and who I'm doing it for. And the other thing I meant to say about the micros is that also, what I see, and this was the sort of turning point for me, if you like, but what I saw out in the world of all the problems that are being created a lot of the time by big business and government, but a lot of the time by big business, is that the micros, when we're talking about impact, they're using their platforms to solve those problems that are being created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. So it's the work itself that they're doing, as well as what they could do with the profit. So, I want to own profit. Profit is fantastic. We don't want to, I'm not making that a dirty word at all. We need more rich philanthropists in our world. And I don't mean pro philanthropists like whatever Jeff Bezos is doing with his money, which is highly suspect most of the time. But I mean, people that really get it, that really want a systemic change. We need more rich people like that in our world.
Yeah.
I love the way you've put that. I think that's so true. It feels like it's always kind of two sides of a coin, isn't it? Either you can want and enjoy having money, or you can be a do-gooder. There's no happy medium. And in fact, to do good, ideally you need some cash behind you. So it's
absolutely. And because I know you guys work with women, I would say I work predominantly with women, not exclusively. When you have rich women in the world, the way that they spend their money is completely different. The way they use it is completely different. Not knocking the guys that I work with at all. And I know there's, lots of fantastic guys doing amazing work out there. I'm not knocking that at all.
No, there really is.
But we've been shown that women will just use their money in a different way.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
As in, like, they put it more back into communities, and like, how is it that you found that they kind of use their money?
Yeah, that they will definitely have that much more at the forefront of their minds rather than thinking about the accumulation. Because years ago, I read a book by Richard Wilkinson, who I later met when I was part of the policy group, called The Spirit Level. And the Spirit Level book showed that happiness increases with the size of house that you live in.
Right.
Until you get to a certain point, and then it doesn't matter how big your house is, your happiness level won't increase. So what are we doing it for? Yes, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes, you need safety and security. That has to be you can't operate from and actually a lot of the time I see with business owners, they haven't thought enough about that. So they're not free enough to move to the kind of, self-actualization bit at the top.
Yeah.
But the point is that what are you going to do with all that? If your happiness is going to plateau at a certain point, what are you going to do beyond that? What's the point? Literally, what is the point of just doing that? So, again, don't get me started.
No, I love it. It's like that. It's just that constant chasing, isn't it? Which I think we all fall into that trap of like wanting more, wanting bigger, and these things will kind of like bring us this happiness. But there's so much value, I think, in slowing down and really kind of assessing and listening to yourself. But I just think the society and the world is so busy, you kind of don't get time almost. It feels like, for me anyway. So it's tricky.
Staying true to yourself, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard.
Absolutely. So we've only got a few minutes left. So I wonder if you could just give us a quick fire answer to this question, because I know that this is going to be something that is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. And that is, there's a pressure almost online when you are working alone or as a very small team to say we instead of I. So I know a lot of freelancers who talk about themselves as being a we. So is it true that will do anything for your business? Do people want to work with bigger and better businesses, or should you be referring to yourself in the first person?
So I mean, we could go into this in quite a lot of detail, but I'll try to give you the succinct answer. And what I think is really interesting about this is a hangover from the corporate world. It's a hangover from, if I'm going to be in business, my only progression is the core. And that really comes from America. It's not been so much the case in Europe. The model in America is that you start a small business and you sell it to the highest bidder once it gets to a certain point. So that's been the model. And it means being an entrepreneur in America is much harder than here.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, and I know that you guys would agree with me, but, it's about the authenticity. Since COVID especially, there has been tons of research done globally that people want to buy into authentic brands, like you said. They are not interested in, or rather they want their money to support individuals and causes that those individuals may believe in. So if you are an I, say that there are some exceptions, which, don't have time to go into. There may be some exceptions, but for the most part, if it's just you, just say I, own it. People will appreciate that authenticity. Your brand will, it will tell the story. If you are a we, like you guys are, then say we. But if you're trying to do it to appear bigger than you are, those days are over, really. People don't want that anymore. They're not really looking for that. And what will happen is you will start you're starting to manage their expectations, and it's based on a falsehood, and you're going to get quote unquote found out, as it were. That's just going to be to the detriment of you and your brand. You're never going to be able to get that back and regain that ground. So I would say just be true to yourself. There's a very odd exception, but basically if you are an I, just be proud. If you're a we, be proud, but just say it as it is.
Amazing.
Agreed. Awesome. No, that was fantastic. I mean, I've just learned so much from this, but I mean, we've chatted before. I feel like we're our values are very similar, kind of what we're wanting is very similar. So yeah, it's just been amazing chatting to you today. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to kind of join us today.
Oh, it's so lovely to speak to you both. And for me, this is the joy of doing business, when you're meeting like-minded people and we're having these fantastic conversations. That is literally the thing that fires me up and, gets me excited. I absolutely love it. It's such a pleasure to spend time with you guys. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, you as well. We could not agree more. We're so thrilled that you agreed to come on to this episode. We just know that everybody listening is going to take something really great out of this. So thank you so much. And I guess before we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. If somebody has listened to this podcast episode and they think, yes, this is the woman for me, what are their next steps? What can they do to get in touch with you, to work with you? What's next?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking. So the next step would be go to my website, marisaguthriecoaching.co.uk. And what I offer to anyone that is interested in taking a conversation further is a 2-hour free business review. And in that business review, we do exactly that. We do all the things that I've talked about today. So we check in and find out what your personal goals are, as well as finding out about your business, where you want to take the business, where it is now, and what the gap may be in between. So the idea is that from those 2 hours, you get a lot of value. And there are things that you can take away from those 2 hours that you can start working on straight away. And if we go on to work together, great. And if we don't, then great. As long as you've got some value from it, that's what's important. So go to my website, marisaguthriecoaching.co.uk.
Amazing. Such a brilliant service as well that you offer for free. Full disclosure, myself and Nate kind of did it with you and it was incredible. I think not enough time do business owners, especially micro business owners, spend time working on their business, and thinking about their business, isn't it? We're so busy all the time. So I think it's so valuable what you do. So yeah, really amazing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Marisa. Yeah, I just want to echo what Louise said. To anyone listening who's on the fence, go for it. It was one of the best 2 hours we've ever spent in our business. Marisa, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's just been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Likewise, look forward to speaking soon. Take care.
Brilliant. Bye. Cheers. Bye.